Hello everyone, and welcome to my tarot collection video, which I think I mentioned I might do a very long time ago. And now, here we are. There are 8 total decks, so I'm going to go through them. 2 are oracle decks, and the rest are tarot. So we're just going to do a little overview, kind of take a look at each one, lay them out next to each other so you can kind of compare them. There's a lot of variety here, size, style, depiction. I guess all of the actual tarot decks kind of follow the Rider-Waite like theming style, but this one specifically really breaks out of the kind of traditional format, I guess you would say. So that's kind of my preface. Now let's just jump in. I'm going to move these all off to the side and pull them out of their boxes and lay them out next to each other so you can kind of see. I'm just going to talk about the boxes for a quick second before I pull them all out of their boxes so you can kind of see. These two are made by the same person, this oracle deck and this tarot deck, and that person is the Witch of the Forest and Forensics and Flowers, whose names I can put on the screen because they have actual names. But these are very solid boxes. I really like them. They both come with a guide, and they have a little ribbon so you can pull the deck out really easily. So again, really nice storage. This one, the Green Witch's Oracle deck, also has a very nice sturdy box. No ribbon, but it's really easy to pull out. But again, really nice for storage purposes. Same with the Vintage Tarot, which is the Scarabeo. Really solid box. Great for storage. These two are both Dabrige decks. They have regular kind of paper cardboard boxes, and as you can see, this one is torn, which is unfortunate. And so overall, I would say a drawback for this particular deck style. They make quite a few decks, and they're quite popular, especially this one, the Original Tarot, which is kind of a slightly altered version of the traditional Rider-Waite deck by US Games, which I got this giant one for kind of display purposes and learning. This box has held up pretty well. I don't use this deck super often, but no issues with it so far, or with this one. But again, I don't pull this deck out super often. This one I do use pretty often. I mean, so it's extra frustrating that the box is ripped, but what are you gonna do? You know, that's just the situation. For my purposes, I do like to keep them in the boxes because I kind of keep them on display on some shelves, and I know that some people keep theirs in bags or like special boxes or whatever, but just so you can see the boxes, this one comes in a box, in another box, and this paper box has actually held up quite well as well. I think it's just a little bit larger. I think the issue with this box is it fits very tightly to the contents, and these ones have a little bit more space. So this one is extra secure because it's a box within a box. But it's also slide style instead of a pull-off style, so that's a little bit different. But yeah, so that's just kind of a general overview of the boxes. If you're looking for storage ability of any of them, now let's get to kind of the more fun part, which is seeing the actual decks. So I'm gonna take these all away and bring them all back. Alright, so here you can kind of see the size difference and also the design difference. This classic Rider-Waite US game, so I'm sure everyone out there who has a tarot deck has probably seen this deck and this plaid tartan background on that comes standard on this edition. It's just not to my taste at all, so there's that one. Just gonna flip them over as I go. I probably should have put out the same card of each deck, but for right now we're just gonna do this, and then later I'll kind of show you the same card in all of the decks. This is the, actually I'm not going to do that right now, Dahlberg Original Tarot. It's got kind of scalloping, a little bit of a different old parchment vibe, and the texture of it is, it's like a linen print. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but these are just like matte glossy, kind of a matte glossy, if that's even a thing. I actually really like the Vintage Tarot back, which is kind of like a tulip and roses type situation. I think those are the flowers. I'm not really 100% sure, but I really love those. This deck, the Landscapes Tarot, I love this deck so much, but I am not a fan of the back design. It's like too simple, too tone on tone. It kind of looks like dandelion poofs or something, but winter. I'm not really sure. I love the deck, the face cards, but I don't love the back. These two are like the same type of company. This is the the Witch of the Forest decks. This one is the Oracle deck, and this one is the Tarot Magic deck. So you can kind of see very similar, that light not to reflect on them. Theming, just really nice. Has that been doing that the whole time, reflecting that light? That's really annoying. Tilt them back. You can see. Just, they're really beautiful. I love the backs on these. Really ornate, but not like too busy, and kind of monotone enough that it's not overly distracting. This is the Dark Side Skeleton Tarot, and it also has a really intricate kind of gothic cathedral back that's really beautiful. And this is the Green Witch's Oracle deck, which also has a really beautiful design on the back. Just floral forest vibes that are great. So those are the backs. So size-wise, I'm gonna just get that out of the way. I really like the size of these decks. So just kind of stack them on top of one another here so you can see the difference, kind of largest to smallest. You can see that quite a variance in size, in length, and width. And the cardstock Thickness also varies. I don't know how well I'll be able to show that. But if you struggle with a larger deck, look for one that's narrow in profile. This one I actually find a little too small, if I'm perfectly honest, but I still love it. This deck, I find to be a little too big, like too long lengthwise, to easily shuffle. And this one is also kind of that situation, but it's a little bit different because you're not shuffling as an Oracle deck as much, at least in the way that I use them. So there's that. Did I forget to put this one in the image? It's the same size as this one. So I may have forgotten to pick that one up, and if I did, I apologize. So let's, I can give you a little flip through of each deck, and then I will show you the same card from each deck next to each other. So we'll start with, get the classic kind of out of the way. So this is going to be the classic Rider-Waite US Games. This is the kind of giant cards edition. Really vibrant colors, really kind of clear, crisp lines. Just very punchy, very, eye-catching. Great. These large ones are especially great for display or for learning because they really let you see all of the detail of the cards. Then we've got, in comparison, the original tarot, which is a slightly more muted color palette, but the exact same imagery as the traditional US Games one. I like the color palette of this one more, and I like the feel of the cards more. That's really going to be up to personal preference for you. But when I wanted to get a classic regular size tarot, I went for this one over the US Games just because I like it more. So that kind of gives you a look at this one. Now this is also in the same traditional imagery, but again, more muted. So this was muted in color tone, same color-ish theming, but the color theming of this is going to be a lot more overall tone on tone and muted colors. But I absolutely love it so much. I love the styling. A lot of these are upside down. Maybe I should flip them over. But I'm just in love with it. If you are looking for kind of a handy travel size deck, this one's quite small. You can throw it in your bag, but overall I just really love it. So I just moved my camera arm there by accident, so if things look a little janky, I apologize. This deck has become one of my favorite decks, and when I got it, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for something that does not have the classic imagery in it. As you can see, this is not the same as the previous three. It's called the Landscapes Tarot, and it is just absolutely beautiful. It's almost done in like a watercolor style, where the imagery isn't super sharp if you see it really up close. But it's just absolutely stunning, and I find it so much easier almost to read because I struggle with remembering all of the aspects that are associated with each tarot card. And with these, I find I connect to the ideas easier, which I thought it would be the opposite. I thought I would really struggle, and it's actually turned out to be one of my favorites. So you really never know which deck is going to speak to you the most. This deck, the Tarot Magic deck, is the second tarot deck I ever bought. I used to have the small version of this one. That was my first deck, probably a lot of people's first. And then I got this one, and I also really love this. That's the thing. I really love all of these decks, and I really can't see me getting another one in the future because I think I have one that fills every kind of niche that I would want. But this deck, it's great. It's got really kind of like more diverse representation, and the colors off the black background just pop so well. It really is just stunning. Okay, we're just going to keep going in order, even though this kind of... Actually, no, I'll do this one first. Then we'll go all through all of the tarots, and then we'll do the 2 oracle ones. This is the Dark Side Skeleton Tarot, and I don't know, I have a weird relationship to this deck. I use it way more often than I thought I would, because when I first got it, I found the cards were really tacky. Just the finish of the cards really had them sticking together at the beginning. You kind of see they still do that a little bit. There was a lot of friction in the deck. But as you use it more, that does reduce, and it becomes a lot more easy to shuffle and use. So that's a disclaimer I'll throw out there about this one. But the imagery on this deck is just insane. It's all black and white, which if monochromatic is not your thing, then this won't be for you. But the detail in this is just like, look at that. It's just crazy. All right, so that's all of the tarots. Now we'll do the 2 oracle decks. This is the first oracle deck I ever got, the Green Witch's Oracle deck. I love it. I use it all the time still. I didn't think I would ever need or want another oracle deck, but then I had this one. I saw that she came out with I had this tarot deck. I saw that she was coming out with an oracle deck, and I was like, I'm gonna grab that, and so I did, and we'll get to how I feel about it later. But this deck speaks to my soul. You can tell that I lean into I don't know why I'm doing this differently than the other ones, but forest, nature, the imagery, and the stylization is just perfect. It suits me. If you're looking for a nature-based oracle deck, I can't speak any more highly of this than I can't. It's just not possible. It comes with one word at the bottom, and sorry, that's the name of the card, and then 3 kind of keywords, and there's a whole book that goes with it. Now the comparison is this. This is the Witch of the Forest Earth Oracle deck, and it is a very different style from this. It's got like a message on each card, not words, name of the card, and then just very straightforward messaging. So it's kind of like blunt, to the point, it's not overly introspective, and the imagery is very simple. And so I gotta say, after having this tarot deck by the same person, I was a little bit kind of like, I did see the images of it beforehand, but I don't know. I like the tarot deck more than I like the Oracle deck, but it has its benefits where it's kind of like, this is something I use when I'm examining how I feel about something that's complex. This one I'll use kind of more like just kind of more direct, more instant self-reflection. Like if I pull it and I get a card and I'm just like, what? I don't know. It's just a lot more simple. So like more complex, more simple. Still, you know, a really nice deck. The books we'll talk about now. So some of the books are kind of more traditional, a lot of writing. This one does have, the Daubrig Original Tarot does have full color photos of all of the cards. This one does not, but very traditional descriptions of the cards, much like this paper book that comes with the US Games version. Not a fan of that, never been a fan of it, don't find it particularly useful. And these ones are kind of in a similar style, but slightly more information. She actually did a full book to go with this deck, which is nice. I actually have a book upstairs. I probably should have brought it down. Like an actual book, not just the guidebook that comes with the deck. But this guidebook is partially full color photos, and then when you get down to the minor cards, it's just descriptions. But the descriptions are more thought out. They're not just kind of bullet point words. And if you have the actual book, which I have actually found quite useful in reading descriptions for all tarot, not just this specific deck, because it kind of teaches you about a lot more of the aspects of the tarot. And then this is the one for the Oracle deck, which is quite good considering how simplistic these messages are. The book adds a lot more depth to this deck than its face value. This is the book for the Green Witches Oracle deck. It is a really great resource for reading the cards. If you find the imagery kind of overwhelming and you want more depth to just like the kind of 3 keywords it gives you, this is done excellently. It gives you like a reflection question to go along with each card that like kind of helps contextualize it for you if you don't really instantly connect with the card or the meaning. There's always a reflection question to kind of direct your thinking about the card if you need that. Sometimes you might be like, this isn't really what I'm feeling, but it's there and it's useful if you want it. This is the book for the Landscapes Tarot. It's a little chunky book, and it has full descriptions for each card, and then the positive and negative, like kind of instant read meanings of each card. Again, super helpful with interpreting the cards. Again, you can read the cards as you feel, or you can use the book for more full like assistance, I guess. So again, really great book. So on a scale of guidebooks, I would say this one is the most useful, then this one, these two, and then these two, and this one. You'll notice the Skeleton Tarot does not have a physical guidebook. That is because they provide you with an e-book. It's like a PDF file guide, and it's kind of like a split between like traditional style and with more added context. So just trying to remember here. Yeah, so it's very much in the structure of this, which makes sense because it's kind of printed by the same company. But there is a guidebook for this that is available, but you do have to download it, and then it's kind of inconvenient because you don't want to carry, like, you don't want to have to pull out your phone to read your deck. It's just, and I mean, I guess you could say that you don't want to have to pull out a little book to read your deck, but at least these are all stored with the deck, where to print this off, it's quite a long file, and it would be huge. It would be like printing out full sheets of paper. So that is a drawback of this deck. Even though it is spectacular, it's beautiful, I love it, that is frustrating. You know, it doesn't come with a physical book, and I wish they would change that. I'm sure it would increase the price, and that's probably why they haven't done it. I can't remember how much they were. I can kind of put that on the screen if I can find that information, how much they all were when I bought them. You will see it now. And if I couldn't find it, you just heard a minute of silence, or a moment of silence. And hopefully that wasn't the case. So that's the guidebooks. Now let me sort through them so you can kind of compare the imagery across the decks for the same cards. All right, folks. Well, that took way longer than I would have liked. The first one we're going to do is the Tower. Let's see if I can remember what order these were in. The three that are most similar at the top, and the ones at the bottom. Two. Realizing now there's a light reflection that's going to get in the way, so I'm going to pick them up. But these three are definitely the most similar, but you can see the variation in color and tone, but the overall imagery of them is very similar, right? Then we get into a little bit more variation with these. So this is the Tarot Magic deck. It's kind of a little bit more aggressive, I want to say. Even though the imagery in these is very violent, the coloring of this one is very much volcano. I don't know. Then you've got the Dobrig Skeleton Tarot, which is just, again, very similar imagery to these, but much more detail, and also kind of more ominous, but I don't know if that's really an accurate way. I probably shouldn't say anything about feeling, but I'm just holding up so you can kind of see how different they are. And then to break the pattern altogether, you've got the Landscapes Tarot, which is just trying to hold it where the light won't reflect it so much, but it's almost like a completely different impression of the Tower card. And I know that a lot of people get kind of caught up in the kind of strikingly violent imagery of the Tower card. And so to have something like this, which is just a wholly different representation of the card, is kind of nice and refreshing, you know? It kind of breaks out of what you might expect from a tarot deck. So that kind of leads me into talking about how I found this deck really intimidating, but now I find it to be almost the most useful. And my cat has joined me. She's probably looking for a snack, but it's late and she ate not that long ago, so she's probably really fine. And this is her. So before my cat interrupted me, I was saying, don't be afraid to break out of kind of a traditional style of deck. Even like within the traditional, there's so much variation. So just find something that speaks to you, you know? If this is too bright, I find it, for me, it's almost too harsh, the coloring. So these more muted ones in the very traditional style speak to me more. It's kind of easier on my eyes and my brain than this one. And this is like a more simplistic interpretation, but still very much gets a messaging across. Whereas this is a much more detailed representation and sets a bit of a different tone. And this kind of breaks the mold altogether, you know? So that's the Tower card. Let's now do the King of Wands. So we've got our traditional muted. Kind of see it goes from a light to a kind of teal. And the cape is a little bit different in color. I kind of feel like this is the kids version and this is the adult version. That's how I would describe the difference between those two decks. And then the Vintage Tarot, even more muted, right? So kind of lay it over here so you kind of see it. Just it kind of gives that old world medieval feeling to the deck. And I think the difference in these, it isn't as noticeable necessarily at first glance. It's more of the feeling the deck gives you when you look at it. So this is kind of immature. This is mature, and this is thoughtful. That's how I would describe the difference to me. Then we have traditional but different, right? We have, is it the King of Wands? Yep. I got confused there for a second. So this might not be as clearly the King of Wands at first glance, and that kind of shows you the difference in the tradition. So, but you do see the wand here, and then it's a frontal view of the throne versus a side view. And you've got some additional imagery. And on this deck, they also include the planetary signs and the, I want to say horoscope. That's not the word that I'm looking for. But it's like your horoscope sign, you know what I mean? So there's actually kind of more information included in this deck than this at first kind of glance. So, but it's so much more fun. Like, than kind of the traditional imagery, which can feel kind of boggy at times. So to have something that's like very colorful and punchy, it's again just about the mood that you're in and kind of the feeling that it evokes and the mindset that you're in when you're using the deck. You want it to speak to whatever your frame of mind is at that time, right? So that's why it's kind of fun and useful to have different styles of even the same imagery. Then you have the Dark Side Skeleton Tarot, which is kind of a pivot of like in between the orientation of these, where this one's are from the side and this is from the front and this is kind of offset, but also still very similar-ish imagery. They just kind of move the things around, right? So here you have kind of the gecko or whatever it is. I'm not sure exactly what it is, up in the sky in the front view. And here it's down in the corner, and here it's directly in front. of the king. But overall, mostly quite similar. Then, again, kind of breaking completely away from the tradition in the Landscapes Tarot. It's just a white tiger in a forest. It doesn't relay at all. Again, it's just kind of a refreshing pivot away from tradition and like potentially more relatable to you, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like too out of the box. But not for me. I love it. And you can get a lot of different decks that have just completely different imagery, but still follow the Rider-Waite structure. As you can see, King of Wands, it's still within that realm. It's just the imagery is kind of a reworking, and the way they tell the story of the card is different. So that's the King of Wands. And for my final choice, I have chosen Death. The card that kind of haunts and scares people who are maybe not familiar with tarot. So we've got traditional light, and then traditional old world. Yeah, is that what I call them? Kind of kid, adult, thoughtful. That was how I treated them last time. This definitely feels more like Plague, more serious, more ominous. And then this one, these two are, again, very similar, just slight difference in tone. This one almost is more vibrant because of the tonal change, whereas this one kind of feels more washed out, which is kind of not usually what you see between a lot of the cards. But again, subtle but noticeable difference and impact in the feeling they generate. Then we have the Tarot Magic deck, which when I pulled out the Death card from the first thing, I was like, oh, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to show off the Death card from the Tarot Magic deck? Because this has got to be one of my least favorite, if not my least favorite art choice in this deck. And overall, I love it. Love the color. I love how they've depicted everything, but this card feels like a chess piece to me. And like, I like chess. You know, it's nothing against chess. It just doesn't ring true to me. I pull this card and the imagery means nothing to me. And that's unfortunate. And that's kind of like when you really love a deck and then there's like one thing about it that you don't like. So that's unfortunate. And when I went back and forth, I'm like, do I choose another card? But I figured it's worth it to kind of depict that you're not always going to be happy with every part of a deck. And the Death card in the Tarot Magic deck is my example of that. Then we have the Dark Side Skeleton Tarot, which is one drawback of this deck and kind of depicted well in this card is almost too much detail at times, where it kind of gets muddy. The message kind of gets lost. It feels obscured or staticky. And so that is something I kind of feel about this card. So this one is kind of one of the more useful ones to kind of depict some of the drawbacks of different decks, or, you know, comparing the imagery is really useful sometimes between decks. But this one, to me, it feels almost a little bit too much. And then you have the Landscape Tarot, which again is kind of like a shining light, complete color difference, complete image difference, where everything about these, even this one, which feels almost cartoonish, they all kind of have this direct, ominous significant feeling, like piercing, change, something needs your attention, and then this is kind of more soft, more intentful, more thoughtful. I don't know exactly how I would describe this, but when I was flipping through and I was like, this is the death card? Like, when you compare it to something like this, it just shifts your perspective, right? So that's kind of the last comparison I had pulled for right now. So this is kind of all of my decks. I didn't really, you can't really do any comparisons with the Oracle decks because they're completely different structure. I can only say this deck is my Holy Grail deck. I love it so much I can't recommend it any highlier. And this deck I had never seen before. I found it on Book Outlet randomly, and I was like, I'm gonna get it, and now it's like probably my most used tarot deck, if I'm honest. So kind of the wrap up of this, the message I want to leave you with is there are so many decks out there. Find the one that speaks to you, or the ones that speak to you in your different states of mind, which is what I find about these, is that I have kind of one for every mood I'm in, Each one has a purpose and a usefulness to me that they fill all the gaps. If I'm honest, I probably don't need this one because I never use it. It's basically just for show. And even this one, I probably pulled it out like 3 times. But it serves a purpose in my collection. So I would say find a deck or decks that speak to you in a diverse way. Don't just buy the same thing kind of over and over again. Find things that speak to different aspects of your personality or your life, and that can reflect you in different states of mind. But also, don't just buy every pretty tarot deck that's out there, because I've seen so many decks that look absolutely beautiful. Do not waste your money on something that's just going to sit on a shelf because it's pretty. I mean, you can absolutely do that. I mean, if collecting is your thing. But find one that speaks to you. All right. So I just finished putting all these back in their boxes. And I just forgot to say at the end that I do have individual videos on pretty much all of these, I think, except for this one, because that's my newest one. I haven't done an individual video on it yet, and I'm not sure if I will. But if any of the other ones you want more information or kind of a closer look at them, you can check out those. They're all in a playlist on my channel, Oracle and Tarot decks or unboxings, something like that. And now, thank you for joining me and at my desk here tonight, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.